All right, can folks confirm that they see my slides? Mike, I see.
Yep, I see
Thank
them.
you. Great. If there's anyone out there, hi folks, sorry for the technical difficulties. Thanks for joining us today for our sprint demo. We are the OMB e-regulations team, and this is Sprint Hair of the Angel. We're going to be demoing some improvements we've made to the tool today, as well as some design work for work that is coming. With that, we're going to kick it off, and I will hand it over to CM to talk about some speed improvements.
Excellent, thanks. While Teresa sends me the presenter. Yeah, so if there's a problem, Tig, will you let us know? And Teresa can click my little picture. So I'm going to share my screen now and talk about some of the changes we've made this past week, or this past sprint. So I'll start off describing some of the speed improvements we've made. These are performance improvements that have been made over the course of the last sprint, 2 weeks. The first bundle comes from using new domain names. So policybeta.cio.gov and policyapi.cio.gov. We started using these at the very beginning of the sprint, roughly 2 weeks ago. Not only are these more conducive to being put in memory, so users can remember these a lot easier. They're more semantic. They also have some performance benefits. I'll note here that the same content is being hosted at both the old cloud.gov URLs and these URLs. The first benefit comes from using Let's Encrypt as our certificate provider. So previously, on the cloud.gov provider, that didn't play very well within OMB. Specifically, Chrome couldn't recognize the certificate. Now that we have Let's Encrypt within OMB, you can use Chrome in addition to IE and Safari, etc. Perhaps more important in terms of performance, we're using AWS's CloudFront with those domain names. Now, CloudFront is a content distribution network. I'll cover what that means really quickly. So the users who are going to the cloud.gov domain, they're traversing the public internet from wherever they are to cloud.gov to get the content. Those hops can take a long time. What a content distribution network does is it provides the content closer to the user. So the same content is replicated to places all over the world, which means that generally users are able to get to the content faster. Now, those content distribution nodes have a fast connection to cloud.gov, so it's actually a faster round trip, even though we're not caching any content. The other major performance improvement that we've made happens in the user interface. So this is the interface that we all know and love. I'm highlighting here that this interface is composed of multiple pieces of data, multiple API requests. So to get the list of topics, to search a list of policies, to get the actual content for the requirements, all take HTTP requests. And as the user clicks between pages, each of these requests are made again and again and again. We've added a cache, which prevents that from happening, so that because the content really doesn't change too often, users' browsers won't have to do a full round trip to get new content as they, for example, just page left and right. Now, real quick, I'm going to go over some demos. So most notably, in terms of the user interface, the big change for this sprint was replacing the word keywords with topics everywhere. So that means that the URL describes topics. Topics are listed here. It says topics on the left-hand side, where topics everywhere. When I go to filter by topic, you see that the content here comes up immediately. Prior to this, in previous sprints, you had to start typing before anything would come up. And you can still do your searches. in terms of the data from the API, you may recall that last sprint we showed some prototypes, some demos, some mock-ups, sorry, of a policies tab in which we were showing individual policies and allowing users to filter those policies by the topics associated with their requirements. So policies are broken into requirements. Requirements have one or more topics. To facilitate that, we've added some backend work where we're including the total number of requirements per policy, as well as a number of relevant requirements. And by that, I mean that if I filter the content, but here I'm filtering by the topics within the requirements, within the policies. If I filter that way, I see that the total number of policies changed. Before this was, I think, 252. And the total number of requirements remains the same, while the relevant requirements dropped a bit. So this will allow us to create the interface that was demoed before. Finally, I wanted to talk about some changes to the admin screen. So I'm going to log in real quick. And note that we've auto-populated a group called editors. And so in Django land, groups are collections of users with specific permissions. So the editors have the ability to modify policies, requirements, and topics. They do not have the ability to modify users, so they can't add people. Speaking of modifying users and permissions, though, let's go through and I'm going to modify John. This is the demo site. I'm going to give him an editor role. And let's say he can modify groups. Now, I do that to show you that we're now collecting many more logs. And so I'm filtering the logs by the components that matter. You'll see that I have a log that's saying that I logged in. So I know exactly when every user logs in. I know that I modified John to give him the group editors, as well as to give him all these permissions. So we're keeping track of changes to these logs, which will be good in terms of getting an authority to operate. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Micah.
All right. A hard act to follow. I'm excited about all of those things. Let me see if I make sure I'm sharing the right screen. You should see a design update. And it looks like I'm maybe seeing it in my screen here. If anybody can't see it, just feel free to holler at me and let me know. So yeah, lots of design things. So up until this point, we've kind of been working on some wireframes that began early on and some ideation phases, and we were kind of skinning those, and that's kind of where the application is currently. So now we're kind of working to think a little bit more about being future friendly around our designs and around what's on the page. So some of that has started with ideas around what pages do we need, doing an inventory of our templates and our components, although you cannot click on this link because it's in a YouTube window. There is a ongoing discussion on a document here about just things that we have to account for. What are we thinking of? This will especially start ramping up, I believe, in the next sprint as I know that there's discussions about content that's going to be going on the homepage and what that is, just kind of the message that's being conveyed. What is this thing to a user when they show up and begin to use it? Just making sure that it's friendly to people in as much as it is friendly to people who need requirements, friendly to those who stumble upon it and need to use it for other things, just kind of working in that. After thinking of those components, we want to make sure that the designs that we are utilizing are friendly for the application and componentized. So thinking in designs in atomic ways at smaller levels and building on those building blocks to build out an interface. So that is what this screenshot is the the design software that we're using, spent a lot of time thinking about how to utilize components so that we can build things out faster and reusably, if that's a word, which it is now. You may not be able to see very well, but on some of the components, there's things that are denoting whether they're for, let's say, a desktop size or a mobile size. So we're beginning to think about different components for different screen sizes and different pages and different, all those things kind of building blocks on each other. This is a common image that's associated with this atomic flow where we've got this, I have 3 kids and I step on Legos all the time. So you kind of see that there's this big jumble of Legos. And once we kind of get ourselves in order and understand the different components to do that, then we can begin to understand all the different kinds of things that we can build with that. The top one is a detail of a policy. The middle one might be a listing of policies. And the last one might be a mobile experience of that same kind of thing. Excuse me. This allows us to work faster, to work more holistically and more future-friendly around how, not only for ourselves, but also for people that might come in after us. If I roll off the project or as somebody transitions on, it helps us move faster. Also in the sprint, so not only did we do an inventory of those things and start creating those things, we have done some exploration around the mobile design and the mobile experience. So this is similar to what CM was showing here, was a listing of a filtered view of requirements, and also how we would consider, the sidebar that he was pointing out, how that's going to work out on a mobile interface, how we're going to call users to edit those things, how that's going to work. We want to make sure that we're accounting for that because that's something that's important. As we move forward, like as if someone's able to pull something out in the middle of a meeting, like a phone to say, or a tablet, and be like, hey, there's this thing and I want to search and find it. This is the idea that we're going to be doing, that we're going to be presenting to them with this application. That is it for the design updates. I'm going to stop sharing and turn it back over to Teresa.
Excellent, thank you. One moment. Share my screen back. So that is all we have for you today. Thank you for coming and spending this time with us. Our next demo will be on May 12th. Now we're going to move over to the phone part of our demo. So you can call into this number and we'll be here to hear any feedback you have or answer questions. So you can go ahead and close out when ready, and we'll see you on the phone.